Sukhoi Gar, everyone, and welcome back to Star Wars Dark Triad. If you aren't familiar with the story of Dark Triad so far, then, well, you might want to go back and read it. It basically tells you what's going on, as it is for right now, at least. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy, and welcome back to Star Wars Dark Triad, Chapter 1. The ancient Sith Empire had spanned across solar systems from the Outer Rim and into the unknown regions. Chuk Darafan was a jungle planet in the unknown regions that had once been on the farthest reaches of that empire, housing a small outpost that had escaped the Republic's notice. Later on, it was settled by Imperial citizens fleeing the Republic war machine at the end of the last war. For the most part, they were content to live in peace, but they never forgot what happened to their ancestors. And for 3,500 years, the Sith of Chuk Darafan had remained unaffected by the events of the galaxy beyond their own system. Then the distant wars of the Republic came to their doorstep. The Confederation of Independent Systems had somehow gotten wind of the presence of Sith artifacts on Chuk Darafan. Count Dooku sent his dark acolyte Isi Kend to get the Shatterstar, a super weapon rumored to have been left behind on the planet by the ancient Sith Empire. The Republic in turn had sent a small fleet led by the Jedi Tyresus Kell and Saya Narel to intercept the Separatist forces. While they had succeeded in order to destroy the Shatterstar, they had to sacrifice what was left of their fleet. The Republic had never sent anyone for them, so the Jedi and their clone troops made a life for themselves on Chuk Darafan. In the intervening years since then, life had continued much as it had before. On the southern continent was the community of Savan, settled when the refugees first reached Darafan. It was here that many Sith made their home, plagued by the beasts and Sith spawn of the jungles, but other than that they had little to worry about. At that moment, a young Sith with the trademark red skin and facial tendrils of his species was sitting in a tree. He was wearing a simple, loose tunic that kept the proper ventilation in the heat of the Darafanian jungle. There was a sudden rustling in the bushes, and he sat up, drawing the sword that was attached to his belt. "Paris, calm down. It's just me," a soft female voice with a familiar Sith accent says. Paris smiles, recognizing the voice and lowering his sword. The Sith female stepped out of the bushes, her skin an even darker shade of red than Paris's. She's dressed in a slightly torn top and shorts and carried a spear. She smiles up at Paris, her medium-length red hair bobbing in a ponytail to keep it out of her eyes. "Helani!" Paris said with a smile, jumping down to the ground. Helani had been his best friend growing up, and he was always happy to see her. Another time and place he might have even loved her, but she was being groomed to become a hunter. In Savan, there was no more honored job than being a hunter. They ventured out into the jungle for days on end and brought back food for the town. While they were permitted to have relationships, hunters had to focus more on the job, so they avoided them for the most part until they were older. "The elders sent me to find you," Helani says. "There's a ship on approach to the landing zone." "What kind of ship?" Paris asked, as he and Helani started walking back to Savan. "I don't know. No one does. It's different from the smuggler vessels that have come before," Helani says. Smuggler vessels occasionally landed on Chuk Darafan, and usually was willing to trade with the Sith. If this was something new, then this was going to be very interesting. Savan had grown from the small village that had originally been built at a location into a good-sized town. Paris's father, Kal, an aging Sith male wearing black robes, was waiting for them in the middle of town. "I'm so glad that Helani could find you," Kal says, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Of course, father," Paris says. "Helani said there's a ship on approach." "Yes, we picked it up on sensors just now," Kal says, motioning towards a console against the wall. Paris looked at the sensor readings. The ancient equipment gave a vague idea of what the incoming ship looked like, but it certainly was like nothing he had ever seen before. Our communication equipment is down, Call says, so we have not been able to communicate with them. It might be the Jedi, Alani suggests. I doubt it. It's been over 200 years since they've visited before, Call says, and according to the smugglers, they have bigger problems than us. Paris shrugs. Most of the ancient animosity between Sith and Jedi had been abandoned centuries ago by the Darafinian Sith, but records of the ancient wars still existed. When Tyseus and Saya had arrived so many years before, most Sith had been afraid that they were there to wipe out the Sith once and for all. Instead, they had become allies and stopped the Confederacy by working together. Jedi have no interest in this planet. They're too far from the major hyperspace lanes, Call insists. The three Sith purebloods made their way towards an area at the end of Savan that had been converted into a landing pad for ships and shuttles. That's when the ship came into view. It was roughly the same size as the smuggler vessels, but sleeker and with a more pointed design. Paul narrows his eyes, placing a hand on the lightsaber hilt at his belt. Sith hunters and elders were the only ones that were allowed to carry these archaic weapons, and while for an elder it primarily served as a ceremonial weapon, Call knew how to use it effectively. Father, what is it? Paris asks, suddenly becoming nervous as Call ignites the lightsaber's crimson blade. It's the Jedi, Call says as the ship lands, and they're here for us. Well, there you are, everyone. Sorry for ending it on a cliffhanger like that, but what can I say? I love building up the drama. It's kind of sad that I wasn't able to do the whole countdown to episode 7 thing like I wanted to, but I kept missing days. Oh well, at least I got some good videos out. I will be coming out with one new video tomorrow. I will also be watching episode 7 tomorrow, but the video will be out before I see episode 7, so yeah, no spoilers whatsoever. So, I will see you then, and may the dark side be with you, always.